This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this really innovative, exciting, and informative workshop that's happening today. I would like to start by telling you that I would be your SAA for the evening. I would request everyone to keep their microphones muted unless they're speaking. Since this is an interactive session, whenever there is a question, whenever someone wants to respond, please feel free and respond. Cell phones are something that we know are important, but I would request that you keep them on silent or a vibrator mode. The vibrator mode, if it's making noise, doesn't really make sense. So just keep it on mute if possible. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Toastmaster Aarti, who is actually a part of a corporate organization. She does that by the day when, and once at the end of the week, when her corporate job has sucked all her life out of her, she starts coming to Toastmasters to getting recharged, rejuvenated, and everything else that she likes to express through this platform. I'm going to hand it over to our energetic, enthusiastic, and really chirpy MC of the day, Toastmaster Aarti.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Gautami, for kickstarting the meeting and reading out the rules for all of us so wonderfully. Well, as rightly said by Benjamin Franklin, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Aarti. I welcome you all to this workshop on secrets to the winning speech. We all know that International Speech Contest is just round the corner. So this is certainly the right time to have a workshop session for understanding the nitty-gritties and secret recipe to a perfect speech. Well, before let us understand quickly what these contests are. Well, there is a tradition in Toastmasters to conduct speech contest every year. Each year, thousands of Toastmasters they compete in various kinds of speech contests like humorous speech contest, evaluation speech contest, international speech contest, table topic speech contest. Competitions begin with a club contest level, and the winners continue to compete through the area, the division, the district levels. The winners at the district level international speech contest, they proceed to the region quarterfinal level. Following region quarterfinal levels, winners advance to the semi-finals for a chance to take part in the World Championship of Public Speaking. Well, this was about the structure of speech contest. But now let me introduce our workshop facilitator, Dan Magill. Dan has been a semi-finalist of World Championship of Public Speaking 2021-22. Dan is a copywriter and a communications consultant by profession from London, UK. Also, not to forget, in 2019, Dan became the Toastmasters District 91 humorous speech champion before going on to try his hand at stand-up comedy. Well, fellow Toastmasters and dear guests, please help me welcome on the virtual podium, Dan Magill. Dan, over to you.
Thank you, Artie. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. But can we get a few more cameras on, please? Just a few, or everybody would be nice. A few or everybody. Just before we start, I've seen a few people in the chat who've kind of commented who they are and where they're from. So just to say hello to you, not picking favourites already, but hello to Philippa from Zimbabwe. Welcome. Has Philippa got a camera on?
Judges have been briefed and are confirmed qualified.
Somebody's actually in a contest while we're doing this. That's probably the best place to watch this workshop from, in a contest. Who else have we got in the Oh, in the chat. We've already said hello to Milhana. Hello again, Milhana, and hello, Dhaka from Dhaka Oasis Toastmasters Club. It's actually Kamal. Hi, Kamal. Okay, so let's get into it. Great to see a few more cameras on. Please try and leave them on. This is going to be about an hour, I think, but fairly relaxed. If you've got any questions at any point, we'll try and have some time at the end, but just put your hand up while we speak. Your virtual hand, I might not see it if you put your hand up, but I'll try and look out for the little yellow emoji hand or whatever they're called here. And good, none so far. Oh, Amanda. Hello, Amanda. Nice to see you. Oh, hi. Okay, let's get into it. So firstly, how many of you, show of either real hands or virtual hands, are thinking of entering one of the contests this year, or particularly the international contest, but let's say any speech contest this year? I know Amanda, of course, already doing well. Susanna, good, Susanna. Is that Reigate, Susanna? I hope so. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good, nice to have you here. Okay, so a good few of you, and this session is going to be about preparing a speech that can hopefully do well in a contest. But it's not all about that. So if you're here and you've got no intention of entering the contest, hopefully this will inspire you and maybe motivate you a little bit to do that. But it's also just about hopefully creating better speeches, more impactful speeches. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at for the next hour. So there's some of those cameras going off already. Put the cameras back on. So there should be plenty for everyone, whatever stage you're at, whatever contest you're entering or not. And I think the reason I say that is since I did well last year, I got to the world semi-finals, and that was all great. And people have asked me to come and talk about writing the secrets to winning speeches. And so it's got me thinking a lot about what is a winning speech. And of course, last year, the speech that did well was a typical winning speech, and that was great. And actually, sorry, everyone, but you're going to have to sit through that in a while because we're going to have a little look at it. But I think back to when I first joined Toastmasters 5 years ago. I hadn't even joined. I just went to see what was going on. I had no intention of speaking because I didn't like speaking. It terrified me. I just wouldn't ever get involved in speaking. I didn't even go to try and get over the fear. I just went to watch, to be honest. I'm not sure how I ended up there even. But anyway, I watched a few speeches and it was great. And then during the break, I got asked if I'd like to give a table topic. This was in person. And I didn't know what a table topic was. And I said yes because I didn't really know how to say no to this nice person who was asking me. And then when I found out what it was, I thought, okay, I've got another 5 minutes of this break to find an escape route out of the building and not ever come back here again. And I remember I went into the bathroom and I kind of looked up at the window and thought, could I maybe squeeze out of that window? That could be a way to get out of here. And it turned out I couldn't. I tried, I couldn't. And I opened the door and thought, okay, I'm just going to turn right and I'm just going to not make eye contact with anyone, just leave this building. And I opened the door and I stepped outside and there were people there looking at me, probably waiting, wondering why I'd been so long and why the window kept opening and closing. And I did accidentally make some eye contact, and before I knew it, instead of turning right, I turned left, and it was like an outer body thing. And next thing, I was up on the stage, and it was the first time in my life I'd ever been up on a stage in front of people, and it was terrifying, and it was a bit of a blur. And I spoke for 1 minute, and I sat back down, and I remember sitting there thinking, well, I'm still alive. I'm not going to get asked again. That's me done for the night. And just this feeling of kind of euphoria and relaxation and joy really came over me. And I thought, wow, I could definitely feel this again. That would be nice. And so I came back the next week and then I joined, and then I started entering contests. So actually for me, the biggest winning speech I've ever given was not that one last year. I mean, it was nice. It was nice to get a free trip to the States to give a speech in front of a big audience. but it wasn't the biggest winning speech I've ever given. It was that very, very first table topic. So I think that's just something for everyone to think about. Yes, these contests are great and they push us and develop us and make us hopefully become better at engaging with an audience and getting feedback in terms of real feedback from judges' scores rather than feedback that might be kind of quite nice to us. So contests are great for all that. But we should also remember that it is about just developing our speaking and not worrying so much about results. So just with that in mind, just thinking about then what does make a winning speech? What makes a winning speaker? Can we just get a few of you just in the chat, just to tell me a speaker you admire? Any speaker you admire? Just jot the name down in the chat. What was the table topic, Biswanta? It was something about a strange one. It was if I was going to go abroad and propose to a woman, how would I do it? That was the question. That was that, and I don't know what the answer was. I don't know. I remember talking about going down on one knee at one point, and I was so nervous. I think I almost was down on one knee at that point, but that was it. Anyway, let's see what we've got. Amanda, Dan, Magill, go away. And not, by the way, this doesn't have to be just Toastmasters. I was just, sorry, I'm struggling to open the chat window. Yeah, but, second. Okay, let's see who we've got. So, okay, then Amanda, Boris Johnson. Meanwhile, can we get some serious ones in the chat? Speakers that impress you, speakers you admire. Big famous speakers, I suppose, but you can go Toastmasters if you want. But meanwhile, Amanda, why does Boris Johnson impress you?
I did write not Boris Johnson.
Oh, not Boris Johnson.
For
okay.
every reason under the sun.
Okay.
Every single reason. I used to be impressed by the late Labour leader, but nobody else liked him. I like people who touch my heart. Yeah. So if there's a good message that makes me feel something, I like that.
Brilliant, thank you. And if anyone who doesn't know Boris Johnson, we'll leave it at that. Gautami, Esther Perel, can you explain why?
Yeah, I think she is someone who has put in 10 years of research in her topic, and she makes sure that every speech she delivers has a message. It is funny, yet it is very impactful. And I think it has helped many people solve relationship problems, I guess. So that's why she has a way to convince people.
Brilliant, thank you. And Susanna, the same speaker for you?
That's correct. I was surprised to see that someone else mentioned her as well. What I really like about her when she talks is that she's just so natural and all the words seem to flow and her voice is very tender and like she talks as a psychologist, talks to everybody's heart. I think that's the best I like about her.
Lovely, thank you. Anyone else before we finish on this point? Okay. So we've had a few speakers there, and the thing that really you all spoke about kind of inspiration, you touches your hearts, the message that they have. None of you really said anything about body language or
yeah.
We got someone off mute. We got a Zoom to mute them. Oprah Winfrey, Milhana. Go on, let's quickly hear from Milhana. That'll be nice on Oprah Winfrey.
She's very expressive and very authentic. Whenever she speaks, she like you said, her body, entire body speaks.
Gautami, are you able to mute somebody? Thank you. Okay, sorry, carry on, Milhana. Are you done?
She's very expressive. I like the way she speaks. She uses her entire body. So yeah.
Thank you. So none of you except Milhana mentioned body language. But normally when when we talk about speakers we admire, that is what we go for. We go for the message, we go for the heart, the inspiration, how they make us feel. We don't really say, oh, Barack Obama, what great vocal variety he's got, or doesn't he use the stage well, or Oprah, oh, she has great eye contact with the camera when she talks. We don't say anything like that, do we? But when we're in Toastmasters, it's kind of all we focus on. We give evaluations, we might give a formal evaluation, and all those things I've just listed will fill our 3.5 minutes. We might send notes to the speaker at the end, and we might say, oh, your eye contact could have been better. Oh, you could have used more of the screen. All these things, which, yes, are valuable kind of little tools to use and things to think about when we speak, but they're not the most important thing for me. And I think the reason that we do concentrate on those things is firstly because that's what we learn when we come to Toastmasters. We see everyone else doing that and we do it, and we kind of all learn this, in my opinion, wrong way of evaluating. But also it's easy, isn't it? It's kind of quite easy to tell someone that they can look at the camera or they should use more of the space. It's harder to tell them that what they spoke about, that the way they delivered the message, the way they structured their speech wasn't good. And I think, again, there are two reasons for that. Firstly, because maybe we're not quite so sure why it wasn't good, and we're not quite so sure how we can help them with kind of this big content bubble that's there. And secondly, because it feels maybe a little bit more personal to criticize somebody's writing or somebody's, story. So we concentrate on those other things. But I think it is important that at least in ourselves, we understand that it is the message, it is the inspiration, it is the touching people's hearts and getting across to them that matters more than all those other things. So I wanted to talk a little bit also about my job, what I do for work away from Toastmasters, how that helps me at Toastmasters, and hopefully some tips on how that can help you. So I'm a copywriter and kind of communications consultant, and I work with lots of big companies. I've worked with Apple and Netflix, and at the moment a bank in London. And within this role, mainly as a copywriter and mainly as a digital copywriter, people will come to me who are maybe launching a new product for the bank or whoever. And they'll say, here you go, Dan, we need all this to be put on the website. And they'll kind of reverse in a lorry and just dump pages and pages and pages and pages of words that they want me to put on the website. And they'll say, that's what we want to say. That's what we want to tell the customers. So can you do that for us? And so my job is to go through and kind of think, well, yes, that might be important to you, but it's not going to mean anything to a customer. So that's gone. That is quite a good point, but you've taken 6 sentences to say what we can actually do in 3 words. And if you do it in 6 sentences, you're going to lose the customers. So it's my job to work through these things and try to make things simpler, make things clearer. And it's probably pretty clear where I'm going with this. But before I do, let's just have a look at the Apple website. Oh, can I get screen sharing from whoever can do that? Go to me, thank you. So we're going to look at the Apple website, a version of the Apple website from 1997, so 26 years old. In a second. Good? Is it there?
Hey, Aarti, you will have to do it. I don't have the right.
Thank you. Okay, let's see.
Please try now.
Okay, so hopefully you can see. Can I just get a nod if you can see the Apple website? Yeah, great. So that's the Apple homepage in 1997. Now, if you just have a look at that, firstly, I think the word that most people would say is very busy. There's a lot going on there. If you have a look down that red column on the left, find it. Now that looks like a button, but I'm not sure what it means. What does find it mean if we click that button? Who knows? And then we've got product information, customer support, technology and research. There's just a list of things there with why we would want to click on any of them back in 1997. I don't know. And then they've got what is kind of their big key message, I suppose. It seems to be the thing that if there's anything in this mess that they want us to take away, it's this register today for a free CD-ROM. Now, I know CD-ROMs were all the rage back in 1997, but why are we registering for a CD-ROM? What is it? A cyber drive? I don't, maybe it meant more then, but I don't really know why I would want to register for that CD-ROM. And if I did want to, I don't know how I'd do it. There's no button there. There's no obvious way of doing it within that box. Then on the right, we've got movies from Mars. Again, I don't know what's going on there. And there's just lots of text down the bottom, pre-order the Mac OS 08, and then words and words, and then be the first to know about what. It's a bit of a mess. And this is fine because it's 1997. People are just kind of working out what to do with websites. So all websites were like this. But this is what I was talking about in my job, where people just kind of throw everything at me and say, put that on the website. And if I did just put it on the website, this might be the mess that we would get. So let's have a look at the Apple website today. Completely different. It couldn't be further from what it was in 1997. This is actually a few months ago. I think we're on the iPhone 14 now, aren't we? But it's within the last 12 months. So just look at the difference. Firstly, how many words can you see there compared to that last page? Let's just flick back and forward there. Just how many words there, and then how many there. It's just, you can't even compare. Look at the nice, big, clear imagery. What do they want to push on this page? Well, it seems the main thing they want to push is the iPhone 13. And there it is, a nice, big close-up image of both sides of it, the cameras. And if we then want to buy the iPhone 13, remember that back on this page, if we wanted to get that CD-ROM, we don't know how to get it. But here, if we want the iPhone 13, there it is. Learn more. Great. You know, there might be other features we want to know about, or buy. It's so simple, and it's vertical. The journey on this page is vertical. You want to mute again? Thank you. So if we go back here, you'll see it's kind of a horizontal page. There's all these blocks. And fine, we kind of get used to reading left to right, but this isn't really left to right because it's different blocks. It's messy. But they're now vertical, a nice vertical journey and with really big, clear, vivid imagery. So, yeah, you've seen this one a few times now. How do you prepare a speech? But firstly, I'm gonna come out of this because I don't think we need to stay here. Okay. So yeah, I think, as I said, I think you know where I'm going with all that. I think often the speeches that we give at Toastmasters or anywhere, I think they're like that first version of the Apple website from 97. I think we have an idea. I think we then add on ideas and ideas. And it goes from kind of being that nice, neat speech that we work through to kind of expanding into this horizontal mess sometimes, quite often, because we just have things we want to say. We're like that person in my work who just wants to give all that to the audience and doesn't really care so much whether the audience understand it. So I think our challenge is to prepare a speech like we're preparing that new version of the Apple website, to only think about what the customer, in our case, the audience, needs, and what is going to make it so simple for them that they don't drop out. They don't think, I don't know why I want that CD-ROM. I'm going to go to sleep at the back of the room. You want them to think, oh, that's a nice big colorful picture of the new iPhone. I'm going to stay interested in this. So that's why the analogy there with websites and where websites are going today. So with that in mind, there are kind of 4 key elements that I think about when I sit down to write a speech. And in a while, hopefully we're doing okay for time, just about. In a while, I'll play the speech that I gave last year and we'll look for these key elements within them. And the only reason I'm playing my speech is because I know those elements are within them. Otherwise, I wouldn't. So for me, the four elements, the things to have in a list, and if you're making notes now, do it. But the things that you want to think about, they sound obvious, but just to have these on your page, right? Or at least 3 of them sound obvious. To have them on your page as you start with your idea, I think is really important. So structure, you need to be aware of your structure. Think of that website, the vertical structure with each of the 3 things that they had on that new page. Your message. What's the message that you want to give to the audience today? All speeches, particularly contest speeches, but all speeches really should have some kind of message, even if it's a silly one, you know, in a humorous speech, it might come to an end where the message is kind of a little bit silly, but there'll be some message, something to either entertain the audience or inspire them, something they can take away. The third thing that I have, and this is the one that maybe most people don't think about so much, but for me, it's very important, is themes. And we're going to cover each of these individually in a second. But what themes are you going to bring out within your speech? I suppose the themes for the website page we just looked at would be phones or devices, or phones or devices, really, iPads. They're not really what the page is there for. The page is there to sell you these phones, but the theme of that page would be phones, and it might be color. That kind of thing. So we'll get to themes, but how can you get themes into your speech? And finally, language, and not just language in terms of how can we, or not at all really, how can we put nice big words into our speech? How can we come across as clever with our language? But also, how can we be simple with our language? So let's go through each one of those individually. So first of all, the structure, and this is the most obvious one, and I know most people will be well aware of this. But the 3 things that you want to have in any speech is your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. And it sounds very obvious, but sometimes it doesn't really come out that way sometimes when we give speeches. So really break those down into 3 distinct sections when you're coming up with your speech, when you're writing your speech. Work on the introduction separately to the body of the speech. It's obviously it's going to tie in, but think about something you can do in that introduction that makes it an introduction. And it might be that you ask the audience a question, that you really involve them, or that you start in the middle of a story with a dramatic scene that still works as an introduction, even though it might feel like it's come from the body. But do something in that introduction that just grabs your audience, especially if you're on screen. It's so difficult. The audience are often checked out before you've even started. At least half of you here are in that position. But really try and grab them with that introduction. Start with a bang, I suppose, and you can look at all the winning speeches. Sadly, we'll look at my losing speech in a while, but you can look at all the World Championship winning speeches over the years, and they will all start with a bang. They will all grab the audience right from the start. And yeah, so I think getting onto the body of the speech is, if you think of that Apple page, so they had their introductory, whatever they want to sell, whatever their biggest thing is at the start. I suppose for them that would be starting with a bang. And then they had these chunks of different content, different things that they wanted to sell as they moved down. And I think it is important to chunk our content like that when we're in the body of our speech. And the reason for that is, firstly, it makes it simpler for the audience to follow, because if you've got a chunk of content and then a break and then a chunk of content, and the breaks will help you to know where the pauses go. But also those different chunks, which will just be different sections, rather than going into one long story where you kind of never give the audience to catch up. Those different sections will give the audience that chance to kind of think, okay, yeah, I've absorbed that, and now I'm ready for the next bit. And it gives them entry points. If you don't give an audience different entry points, I'm sorry to say, but everyone who's ever given a speech, the audience aren't listening the entire time. It just doesn't happen. Our minds wander all the time. And if we're in one long story with no breaks, no pauses, no chunking of our content, there's no way back in for an audience member who's drifted away. They'll just kind of, they might go and think about something else, and then they'll think, oh, sorry, what's going on with this speech? I don't know now. I don't know. I don't know. I've missed too much. But if you can give different chunks that kind of give different entry points, you'll get the chance of, okay, I lost them, but now I've got them back. So think about doing that in the body of your speech. But also in the body of your speech is where you're going to want your story. And I think for me, the story in a speech is that color that's on the Apple website. A story is what makes it just so vibrant and engaging and gets our audience there with us. And if you can put them in the story and make them feel like they're with you. If you think about that first version of the Apple website, there's no story there. There's no color. It was just words all over the place. What can you do to create a vibrant, engaging, compelling story in that body of the speech? And finally, within structure is the conclusion. And again, a bit like the introduction, it will kind of sit away. It's where you'll deliver your message. It's got to be something that's got to, we started with a bang, we've got to end with an even bigger bang. You really do. If you're in a contest, that's when the judges are judging you, right after they've heard your conclusion. So your conclusion has got to be powerful. Go and have a look at last year's winner of the World Championship of Public Speaking and have a look at how strong his conclusion was and the message that he gave so strongly in that last few sentences. So really, really focus on that. Don't let your speech peter out. I suppose this is where maybe we're a bit different to websites, because as you move down a web page, it will be the less important stuff that goes down towards the bottom. But in a speech, the conclusion is where things really need to happen. The second point on the list, the second thing is the message. For me, I think for everyone, you should know what your message is going to be from the start. Have that there, big message as you sit down. You might know the story you want to tell, but you don't know what the message will be. So really think about that before you start, because it's so important that you're not just telling your story and then at the end you're thinking, oh, what can the message be now? Because the story probably won't link so well to the message. But if you're in mind of that message all the way through as you go through your story, as you're writing, it will help you to write towards that message. And that's where we need to go to. We need to know where we're going from the start. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. In your introduction, you might want to hint at your message. And again, look out for these things when we play my speech shortly. Look out for do I hint at the message at the start? Hopefully I do, because that's what I always try and do. But regardless of whether I do it or not, look out for it and start to look out for it in other people's speeches. The introduction might be good, but is it the start of that journey towards the message? If you go back afterwards, can you say, yeah, that was a good start towards the message? So you'll want to hint at that message in the intro. You'll want to build towards it in the body. And in the conclusion, you firmly deliver your message. Whether it be a light-hearted one or something very serious and world-changing, you'll deliver that in your conclusion. I know these things sound obvious, but we can sometimes lose sight of them when we get into actually writing our speech. So that's structure and message. The next thing is themes. And this is a bit of a tricky one, and it's definitely not one that lots of people think about. And it's one that doesn't even seem to have that bigger impact on our speeches. I use themes all the time, but if I asked people afterwards to tell me what the themes were, they probably wouldn't even really know what I meant. And in a way, nor should they. Because for me, a theme is just something that's in the background and kind of just weaves your story, your speech together. And it's you know, it's almost unseen, but it will lift the value, it'll lift the effectiveness of your speech. So a couple of examples. One from me, I gave a speech a few years ago that was the message of the speech was that we should live every minute. We've got so many minutes on this planet, and we should really grab every one of them. So the message was that use every minute. Mute. Okay, great. The message was use every minute. And the story, there were three different stories within that speech. There was one about a movie I'd watched, there was one about my daughter, and one about me at Toastmasters. So my theme, I had a couple of themes going on. One was time, because the speech was about using every minute. And one was movies, because I started with this movie. So I decided to try and make the other two stories almost fit into a movie scene as well. And so the message wasn't minutes. The message was use your minutes. Sorry, the message wasn't time. The message was use your minutes. And the message wasn't movies. It was nothing to do with movies, but the themes were those two things. So it helped me bring out language in my speech, and language is the next one that tied in. So I challenged myself to put kind of like as many movie titles into the speech as I could. And I did. I must have had 20, 25 movie titles in there, but nobody ever noticed that. Hopefully it wasn't because they weren't listening. It was just because they were listening and they were following the story. And you know, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder how many movie titles this person's going to give. But it did, in my opinion, raise the quality of that speech. It helped me use language that fitted into that speech. It helped me move toward that message. And then another theme in that speech was time. So I spoke about clocks, I spoke about the sun, I did different things, but very subtly, that just have those themes kind of sitting there. As I say, they just will weave through the speech. So when we watch mine, just see if you can see any themes that come out. And finally, the fourth one for me is language. We mentioned that earlier. And that there are different things within this. As I did say earlier, it's not about using fancy language. It's most of the time it's the opposite of using fancy language. Important things within the language category for me is the title. People who give icebreakers at Toastmasters, they'll often just call their speech the icebreaker, and that's fine because they've just joined. They don't care how good it is. They just want to get this done and start moving on with their journey. But a title is important. If you look at some of those World Championship winning speeches, there was one a few years ago where the title was something like 65 words long. I think he came second. He won eventually, didn't he? But that title had the audience in fits of laughter before he even came onto the stage that day. And if you can do anything to kind of get a reaction from your audience with the title, really think about your titles. They're important. They maybe don't want to give too much away. I don't think you want your title to be your message. I don't think so. In the example of my speech, I don't think my title needed to be live every minute, because it kind of, well, there you go. I've told you what, that's it. I could just sit back down now, live every minute. But think about something clever, something might get the audience interested or laughing before you start. Foundational phrases, you'll see these all the time in Toastmasters speeches. I think Aaron Beverley, who I was talking about just then with the long title, he was very good at this when he won a few years ago. He had a foundational phrase that kept coming up in his speech, which was something around that was my mission and I take it very seriously. And he kept coming back to that. And it helps anchor the audience in the speech. It helps, like I said, about the chunking, a foundational phrase that kind of keeps coming. It's like a chorus in a song. You know, we learn the chorus easier than we learn the verse, don't we? And that's kind of why these top speakers will use this foundational phrase, because even if we've missed the last minute or so, oh, I recognize that bit, I can sing along again. So think about those foundational phrases. Repetition you'll want to use to really drive home a point. You might do this at the end of your speech. Really, you might say, please, please, please. And that repetition of language, whether it be one word like that or a phrase that maybe you'll say a few times, it'll bring the audience in. It'll bring them back if they've gone. So repetition, watch out for that in different speeches. I think where you don't want particularly fancy language, but you want strong language is in your message. You want to be really, really emotive at that point. And if it's an international speech, the message at the end is going to be key, and it is probably going to be inspirational. And you'll almost want to save your big, powerful language for that point. You maybe don't want to have that all the way through. If you use big emotive words and language and sentences all the way through, it would kind of dilute and water down the end, the message. So think about how you can just carefully use your language to build to that big ending. And that's where you'll use the not so much long words, because we don't want an audience to not understand what we're saying just so we can look like we know big words, but where you'll use the powerful words. And lastly, I think this is the most important one. You'll write your speech. Hopefully, I think normally the best way to give a talk like this, clearly not. I've clearly not written this. But when we're given a 5 to 7 minute prepared speech, for me, I think there's no other way than writing it. But then you've got to make sure that when you deliver it, it doesn't sound written. The worst thing to do is write it and then deliver it on Zoom by just reading what you've got. Again, if you're speaking just to get over the nerves and you're not too worried about the quality and it just helps you to read, then fine. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. But if our aim is to get the audience to enjoy our speech, then we should never just write and read a speech. It doesn't work. But the same thing, we should never just rehearse word for word what we've written down and then deliver that, because it kind of has the same effect. You'll write it, but when you rehearse it, just rehearse it over and over and just try to make it feel more spoken. If there's a word that sounds like it's written, change it. Don't sound like you've written it. And that's a big challenge. You really need to spend some time on doing that to move your speech away from writing and into the spoken word. Okay, so they're the 4 things: structure, message, themes, and language. We're going to watch my video now. We've got about 20 minutes left, haven't we? We're going to watch my video now. So the speech that I gave that won the district here and the quarterfinal last year. And just look out for those 4 things. But I need some people to just for 60 seconds or so afterwards to talk about them. Not in any, oh, that was great, we love that, or oh, that could be better. It's not an evaluation. It's just noticing, just observing anything that you observe that fits into these 4 categories. So let's have some people to do it while we first of all, any volunteers, put your hand up and then I'll just pick. Okay, no volunteers, obviously.
Pratik Singh, Vedavyas Datta, they have raised their hands.
Oh, great. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, Pratik. Okay, so Pratik, when I play this speech, can you just look out and jot down some notes, anything you see about the structure, and then who have we got? Vedavyas? Sorry.
Vedavyas.
Thank you. Can you look at the message and how maybe it builds towards the message? And you won't have a lot of time. I'm not expecting anything spectacular here, but just any notes on the message that you notice as we move through. Who else have we got?
I think I will nominate, we have Mayank Singh over here. Mayank. And we have Arnab Datta here.
Is that okay, Mayank? Can you look for themes within the speech? Any themes that aren't the message, aren't the story, but they are the themes? Can you look out for them? And again, we'll just have a minute at the end just for each person. And finally, language. Who's going to take language? Amanda? Brilliant. Thank you. Okay.
Actually, just one request. Anybody can swap my structure because I have missed that part, unfortunately. So I can take anything on theme or message.
Which part did I give you? Do you want to swap, Amanda?
I can take language.
Okay, so you take language. And what did you have?
I had structure. I would request Amanda to take structure.
Yes, so Amanda will take structure. Thank you. I thought you asked me to start again from the beginning, then I did panic for a second. Okay. Right, let me it'll just take me a second then to get this video up. Okay, so and all look out for these things as well as we go through. All right. See that? A bit of a thumbs up from somebody. Amanda, I can see you. Great. Okay, here we go. Hopefully you can hear as well. Actually, let me just stop. I don't know if I click that button that says share audio. Okay, share sound. Okay, here we go.
Dan Magill, the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity, Dan Magill.
Audio, Dan, audio. Dan. 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 Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
I think Dan, the video
To us, yes, you are.
yeah, the video, yeah, there is no audio.
That's correct.
Yeah, Dan is not audible. Dr. Gayatri is audible.
Yes, I'll just check with him. I think there seems to be some audio connectivity issue there. Can you hear us?
Emma. No audio?
No audio at all.
Oh, sorry. I should have noticed sooner. So is
of insanity.
Still
The
not.
definition of insanity, Dan Magill.
You can hear now. Could you hear that?
Yes. Now.
Okay, sorry. There you go. All right, you have to watch it.
Yes.
Are you insane? Are you crazy? Doolally? Are you one roll short of a full agenda? Contest chair. Fellow screwballs. They say the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over, hoping for something to change. But do you know who originally said that? You're probably thinking Einstein. But no, he never said it. What about the founder of Toastmasters? Mr. Ralph C. Smedley. He had so many great quotes, didn't he? But no, it's not him either. Sorry, Ralph. Nobody really knows who said it originally. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Why keep doing something that simply isn't working for you? When I was 11, that's me, I had a huge crush on the girl who lived next door. Her name was Emma. She was 12. That's her. An older woman. Every morning, I'd leave my house at precisely the same time as Emma, and we'd walk to school together. When I say together, I was always about 20 steps behind, and she didn't know I existed. But I did the same thing every day for 3 years, because I had a theory that one day Emma would notice me and she'd call out, "Hey, aren't you the boy from next door? Let's go for an ice cream." Emma never looked back. Then one day she moved house. Was I insane for doing the same thing every day, hoping for something to change? Yes, of course I was. Yes. But last year, I'm walking my daughter to school one day when I feel my phone vibrate in my pocket. Oh, a friend request from Emma. "Hey, aren't you the boy from next door? Always loved playing with dolls. Remember me? You used to follow me to school every day. Are you still stalking people?" We chatted for a while. Emma told me she's a full-time carer for her 20-year-old son, Matthew, who was born with severe disabilities. She explained that she spent the first few years of Matthew's life praying for something big to change. It never did. But Emma doesn't look back. For 20 years, she's relentlessly done the same things for Matthew, and she still hopes that one day something will change. What do you think? Is Emma insane? Can I tell you something that Einstein definitely did say? He said, "Human beings never fail. Not until the moment we give up." But we give up all the time, don't we? We give up on ideas, careers, relationships, people, and on we go to the next thing. But sometimes persistence and perseverance pays off. Because guess what? Last month, I met up with Emma. We brought our children. We went for ice cream. Seeing Emma with Matthew, understanding a little bit more about the lifelong devotion she has for her son, I realized that doing the same thing over and over, hoping for something to change, it's not the definition of insanity. It's the definition of humanity. It's the definition of beauty, spirit, and perseverance. Why keep doing something that simply isn't working for you? Well, you might think that Emma has no choice. But according to the United Nations, there are currently 60 million children out there who've been abandoned by their families. 60 million children who wish there were 60 million more Emmas. Right now, wars are raging, poverty is soaring. The NHS reports that mental health disorders in our children have risen by 50%. There's no prospect of anything changing for the better anytime soon. So we need more Emmas. We need people who don't care if their persistence in the face of hopelessness makes them seem insane. Can you join the army of Emmas? Can you make a commitment and keep going, even if it starts to feel crazy? Even when you know there's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Why keep doing something that simply isn't working for you? Emma will tell you why. And I think Einstein would too. Because Albert Einstein, he once had a theory that light could be bent by gravity. People told him he was insane, crazy, doolally, one atom short of anything that mattered. But he kept on relentlessly trying, hoping that one day something would change. And eventually, everything did. So if this crazy old screwball of a genius was here today, I don't think he'd be advising us to give up, do you? I think he'd implore us to dedicate ourselves to something, to commit to something, and not to stop until we've achieved something. Anything else surely would be the definition of insanity. Contest chair.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just give you a second to make some notes. And when you're ready, Amanda, give me a thumbs up. If you're not ready yet, that's fine. We can wait. Okay, great. So Amanda, can we give a round of applause to Amanda with structure?
Hi, everyone. Excuse my very dodgy camera. Okay, so I'm looking at structure in Dan's speech. And my first point is that the start is great. Are we crazy? Are we doolally? Really animated, we're drawn in. And then the great point is that he repeats it at the end. So doing something, repeating something crazy, doolally. Again, we've rounded the circle and we've made that animated ending. Now he talked about making the ending something really grab worthy, but actually his final sentence is actually quite quiet. And I found that much more interesting. So he did the crazy bit just towards the end, And then he gave us that message about it being not insanity, but about humanity. Really clever. And we were listening because of all the animation to that final bit at the end. Well done, Dan. I also loved his middle. He gave us 3 stories about Emma. They were distinct, different ones, but they led into each other. And each time he talked about doing the same things. Is that good or bad? And we go from maybe not so good, yeah, possibly, really, and then we need more Emmas doing that persistent, crazy thing. So I love this structure. It was easy to follow, but particularly I like the beginning and the ending, which grabbed us.
Brilliant.
Okay, Dan?
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you. And there are not many people that like my middle, so that was nice as well. Let's who's next? Gayatri, you know, can you? So whoever's next is doing message.
Yeah, that's me, Ved Bias.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Off you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. The message was quite interesting, as if like we were progressing to 3 levels. First was you as a sort of a crazy teenager, perhaps pursuing someone, and then you realize that the person you're pursuing also has another pursuit in her hands, something which is more moving than perhaps your passing obsession might have been. So sort of like it somehow feels like the level of intensity and the stakes have risen. And then you go on mentioning about Einstein's perseverance and his obsession when getting the right thing out for everyone to see. So I like the layering of the messaging, as if like you can be either interested in like a crush or someone at a intense like level, or you can be interested in another person at a emotional level, or you can be interested in the universe at a scientific level. Yeah, I think that was sort of the message you were getting at. That's the message I got from you. Thanks.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, I think I was speaking about building towards a message, and you've said it there. The idea, at least, whether it worked, I don't know, but the idea was that you don't just kind of give the message, you know, we should keep doing things, we should persist. You kind of bring it out in the stories as you move, and then you deliver it at the end. So there's the first story where I'm persisting to try and stalk this poor girl. But my aim is to go for ice cream with her, and later in the speech we go for ice cream. And then there's her persistence with her son, and obviously, you know, I asked the question, is that insane? Obviously it's not. And then there's Einstein's persistence with his work and how that kind of all came to fruition. So it's bringing out the message in the stories that you tell. If I wasn't aware of what I wanted my message to be until I got to the end of that speech and just kind of added it on, then it wouldn't work like that, or it would be difficult. You'd have to go back and change so much. So yes, thank you, but that was excellent. And who had themes? Tough one.
Yeah, so it was with me. So I think it has to do around insanity, trying to explain like what others conceive insanity to be, but actually then drawing a line later on. So drawing a line, differentiating that what we see as something, as someone doing something in area to change something, is actually not insanity. It's basically humanity and other aspect of life. So basically focusing on what someone is conceiving insanity to be, but then saying no is different from what we see or what we perceive.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, insanity definitely won. The message in that speech is not insanity. The story is not insanity, but a theme that runs through it is insanity. And as I say, that it weaves through and it makes things feel more compact. It's like if you go and watch try not to sound like I'm saying, oh, it wasn't my speech great and comparing it to a great movie. I'm not, but it's like if you go and watch a great movie compared to one that maybe is just a bit sprawling and you can't follow, that a great movie might have those themes that run through it that just help tie it together. And so another one in this was children. For me, I wanted that because I knew in the message was that kind of bit about the how many children have been abandoned, then I wanted to have children as almost in people's minds as we went through it. So I showed the two figures of me and Emma as children, and then we spoke about Emma's son, and he was a child, and children was a theme, and then I think science and scientists, and there was a bit of language I used that kind of brought out the Einstein theme in there as well. Okay, last one, language.
Thank you, Dan. One thing I really noticed throughout your speech was simple use of the language. There were no bombastic words or complex words to which we have to really look at the dictionary to understand what you're really trying to say. Each and every word you uttered was very, very clear for us as an audience to understand. I also liked about the fact that one story you narrated, you showed the story that how your phone vibrated and you were reading it. It was so simple way to explain that and enact that entire scenario. Topping it again, that insane word, you use it throughout your speech in a different way, like insane in doing the same thing again and again. And to top it up, one language which you used, it really struck me, is that doing the same thing again and again, it is not insanity, but humanity. That is like, I felt a wow factor, that word of insanity, but humanity is superb use. Further, I also noticed that throughout your speech, you had ethos, pathos, packed with emotion, but you used logos when you showed statistics and report to really back up the message that you wanted to convey. So superb use of all these statistics and the logos which we said it on the mental health and how orphans should be treated and there should be more AMIs. And throughout the speech, the analogy with what Einstein says. So this was some of the interesting things that I noticed in your language. On the whole, very simple to understand without dictionary.
Thank you. That was excellent. All four brilliant. Great job. I've done that a few times. That was the best one. Well done. Yeah, I think just mentioning our language, the one thing that whenever I gave that speech, people kept coming back with was that insanity, humanity line. And again, it's very simple. It's just a simple kind of couple of words that rhyme. They're not big words. They're not clever words. It's just something very simple that really gets into the heart of the audience. And that's what we were speaking about earlier. If you can get their hearts, then you're a lot more than halfway there. So think about how you can use language to do that. A couple of reasons we've just done that exercise. Firstly, mainly so for ourselves, when we're writing our speeches, we can think about those four elements and think about how we put them in. But almost as useful is to think about that when we're evaluating in future, to concentrate. I said at the start, we concentrate on all these peripheral things, which are important, but nowhere near as important as how the speech is actually put together and how it works and how the structure and the language and the themes and so on work. So the fact that four of you have just kind of evaluated that and the rest of you have hopefully taken it on board, I think it's really important, whether it's in your kind of Toastmaster role evaluation or you're just giving some advice to people afterwards, to focus on that content is so important. And I don't mean content like sometimes you'll hear someone say, oh, it would have been good if you'd done that with the story, or it would have been good if you'd not told that story, but you'd told us about this. That's fine, but it's kind of that's not the point. That wasn't their story. So you evaluate what they did and how they did it, and you look at those four elements. You don't necessarily go off telling them how they could have, told a completely different story. So that's it. I think there is one more, a fifth element, which is not a long one, not one that we're going to go into, but it's very important to be aware of. It kind of, you can take all the other four away. You just not be looking at me. You can take all the other four away because this is the most important one, and it's entertainment. I was watching a show on Netflix recently. It was an hour-long talk thing, and there were so many. It was such an inspirational talk. There were so many powerful messages within this hour-long talk, and it was so well put together. And when the talk was finished, I thought those messages were so powerful. Tomorrow, my life changes. I am going to implement all these powerful messages in my life tomorrow. Did I implement one of them? No, of course I didn't. The next morning I was thinking about something else. I haven't changed. Most of us never change. It doesn't matter what speech we hear, how inspirational it is, we're probably not going to change. But that hour of television that I watched was the most entertaining hour of television I'd watched that month, or even maybe that year. It was last year now. And that's kind of the most important thing with our speeches is it doesn't matter how powerful we think the message is, how much somebody says they've learned a lot from that, because hopefully people go and change on the back of the message that you've given them. But it's more important that you've entertained them. And if you feel like you're in the middle of a speech and you can just feel it's not entertaining the audience, then try and work out ways you can. Always try and think about where can you add humor. In the finals last year in Nashville, every single speech had quite a lot of humor in it, because that's I suppose humor is one of the best ways, if probably the best way, to entertain an audience. So think about how you can entertain. Have that on your list as the fifth element, entertainment. Okay, I did have some other tips and things for contests, but we are already over an hour, so we'll leave that, maybe leave that one for another session. If anyone's got any questions and we do still have any time, then feel free. Gautami, I don't know how we are for time, except that we're definitely over. But thank you, and well done to everyone who spoke.
How about we extend this for another 7 minutes? So it will be 9:15. Please, anyone, do you have questions?
If there are any, either hand up or...
I have one question actually. In case we incorporate humor in our basic speech for ISC, that is, so wouldn't it be considered as a humorous speech and not a speech for ISC?
No, I don't think so. To be honest, if you did a complete start to end humorous speech that maybe had a little bit of an inspirational ending, I think you would do, if it actually was a funny humorous speech, I think it would do really well in the ISC. The winning speech last year, Cyril, who did his speech, there was quite a lot of humor in that. There was humor about him and his friend and how they were both discussing their middle names. At the end of the day, for anyone who's seen that speech, it was about how he didn't like his middle name and he stopped using it, but now he's going to use it. And there was a very powerful message about identity in there, but it was kind of more humor than message in the end. Kind of, it was so powerful. So maybe that's wrong to say, but there was a lot of humor, and the humor was with him and his friend. And in the semi-final speech that he gave, it was about an Uber journey that he'd taken. And it was almost total humor right the way through, and that's what got him into the final, was the humor. That speech was definitely not as strong as the one he gave in the final, but he got there because of the humor. And I think in the speech I gave in the semi-finals, which was a slightly different version of the one that you've just watched, I remember I came out onto the stage and I was very nervous. We'd all been online for so long. I hadn't really given a speech in person, certainly to a big group of people like that. And I walked out onto the stage and I said, "Are you insane?" And everybody in the room just laughed. And so firstly, the audience are laughing. If the audience are laughing with the first thing you say, they're on side like that. You couldn't get a better start than having the audience laugh at the first thing you say. But also it calmed me down, because the audience are with me. I'm here. I'm very, very vulnerable position, but all these hundreds of people are with me. I know that straight away. I don't have to worry. I don't have to look at faces and think, "Oh, how's this going?" They're laughing. So humor works both ways, for the audience to be with you and for you to know that the audience are with you. So yeah, don't worry. There's never too much humor, I don't think. And I know there's a lot of, I know this is mostly a session in India. I mean, maybe you don't go for humor there, but I'm hoping you do. I think you do. I've seen some very good humorous speeches there.
Yeah.
That's cool. We have a question here actually. It's from Om Prakash Sharma. He's asking, what are the ways to work on humor?
For that, I will share the link, which Dan had done a humorous speech workshop with us. So there you will get all the details for humorous speech, Om Prakash.
Yes, you go. A 3.5 hour answer for you there.
Yes, and we have Vedabhyas Datta. He has a question.
Just quickly though, I will just quickly answer that one. In how you can work on humor is to just practice it and to not be afraid of it not working. So I've done some stand-up comedy in the last few years. You have to try stuff. And so often things will seem funny to you and you're not necessarily wrong, but the way you deliver them, it might just not work. And you've got to open yourself up to that. You kind of, you know, people can tell you that was funny or that wasn't funny, but the only real way of knowing is if the audience laugh, because people most of the time won't fake a laugh. So you have to open yourself up and be vulnerable to getting no laughter at all, and then tweak it and work out whether it's the delivery or is it the joke. But you have to, humor is kind of a process of just keeping on trying different things and seeing what works. And often something off the cuff that you haven't thought about away from the stage you'll say, and it'll get a huge laugh and you'll think, great, I'm keeping that in. And that's how stand-up comedians work. Sorry, Gayatri, go on.
Got it. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. Yes, Vedavyas, we can take your question and then we'll come to Vishwanath.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for answering that question before, because in your initial question, you had asked like who you like as a speaker, and I had listed James Acaster. And I love the way he like speaks, like the way he does and goes about. So instead of all those inspirational people that everyone's listed, I actually went for a stand-up comedian, because I think that's what my question actually was going to be about, like entertainment. Like, how would you define entertainment? It's so subjective. Would you just define it as something that makes you laugh and that you think it would work as a publicly joke, or would like other people laugh along? Like, how do you like, I guess, figure out what would be entertaining for others while making something that would feel funny to yourself as well, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a similar answer to the last one, I suppose. I did see James Acaster. I meant to ask you to speak about that at the start. Sorry, but glad that you've done it now. I think often you'll see someone who does well in a contest, maybe gets to the finals or whatever. They might win a district final and they'll say, I'm now the best speaker in India or the best speaker in the UK or whatever. And of course they don't think about all these comedians and people who don't enter Toastmaster contests and are certainly better speakers than most of us. Certainly someone like James Acaster is outstanding. And I think it's been like with the humor, you can't know until you go and give it. And with humor, it's the laughter that will give you the feedback. With entertainment, I suppose, see what people say at the end. It's not always real. People are always going to tell you you've done well, but you know, see if people ask you to give the speech again somewhere. If you're in a contest, see if you win. I mean, there are ways of really knowing whether your speech was entertaining or not. But I think even just to be aware of it when you're writing your speech, because I think so often we're like that person who gives me content and says, here's all this, put it on the page, and they're not thinking about whether it's compelling to the people who are going to read it. They just kind of say, there you go. So just being aware, just to think, hang on, I've spent 5 minutes here on this story and I wouldn't be listening myself anymore. There's nothing that's really going to grab an audience in this. So be aware of it when you're writing, and then test it when you deliver it, and keep working, keep improving, like with the humor.
Thanks for answering.
Thank you.
Yes, Vishwanath.
Yes, hi, this is Vishwanath. See, I have a small a bit out of topic question. Okay, suppose how to handle the tough questions, like in front of the customer. Suppose I'm in front of a customer and the demo doesn't go well, right? And suppose in demo something, suppose customer is wanted to see and then it breaks out. So how to handle this kind of scenario? So what will be the best approach we should follow? If you kindly tell me, that will be very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this sounds more like one for a table topics expert. But I think Amanda's here. Amanda's a table topics expert. I'll answer first, and then if you want to have a go, Amanda, great. I think for me, we're all individual with how we deal with these things. I think coming at it from the side of if I was complaining to someone about something, maybe, and if I felt their response was kind of fake, it wasn't genuine, they were trying to cover up for whatever the errors were, they decided, well, we're here to sell this, so I've just got to do it now. I just need to kind of really defensive. If you go defensive in any situation when you're trying to communicate, I don't think it works so well. So it's to avoid. I'm not saying you should attack a customer, but you should not be defensive in a way. Oh no, that's you're wrong, or it does work. Look at this, or whatever. Just to be honest and if you can get humor, if you can make the situation more humorous, if you can do anything, and just try to generate confidence and not like in a salesperson-y way, just in a, I've got control of this situation, I'm going to be honest, all I can be is honest about what's happened here, and then the reaction after that is up to you, but I've been honest, and then we'll see where this goes from here. I think often with a table topic, we get told that table topics can help us with these types of situations where we get put on the spot. I'm not convinced they can, but it's not often useful in a business setting to suddenly be able to say whether we prefer cats or dogs. Maybe this situation where you're doing more of a Q&A type thing, where you have to think on the spot, but in a less catty doggy way, it would be useful. So I think if any of you can ever get yourself in this position now where, do it in a club one day, maybe where you take a project, there are projects in Pathways that involve Q&A sessions. And I think being on the spot in that way is probably more valuable than a table topic, unless you've got anything, Amanda.
I would say attacking the customer is absolutely out of the question, but being direct and asking what it is that they wanted or how we went wrong. So like you say, about being honest, it's about being humble. So we didn't get it right this time. How can we make it better? And if we do it in a light-hearted manner, instead of completely serious, we take out the animosity. We take out that kind of attack from the customer that you can't reciprocate. Light-hearted, humble, asking questions. I think that's the way to go. If that helps.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thanks.
And to relate that to speaking as well with the humble, I met a couple of previous world champions when I was in Nashville last year. I worked a bit with Mike Carr, who won a couple of years ago. But just every world champion I've ever had any interaction with, pretty much, they're all very humble, and they don't come across as we're the winners. But sometimes people further down the chain, maybe in district finals, maybe whatever, they can come across so competitive. And I don't think speeches are built to be competitive. I don't think you ever have to be in a situation where you're competing with another person. You're just doing the best possible job you can do with your speech. And if you start coming across as arrogant and overly competitive, it's not going to work with judges, and in the long run it wouldn't get you anywhere, which I think is why most of these world champions do come across as very humble and nice people. Thank you.
Dan, you can hand it over to our MC, Aarti.
Back to you, Aarti. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dan. I would request everyone to have a big round of applause for Dan for giving such a wonderful and insightful workshop today. Thank you, Dan. You never disappoint us. And I would like to thank everyone present here for taking out their valuable time and attending this workshop. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We can now adjourn this meeting.